Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. I have a special guest here for you today. And if you are watching on YouTube, you're going to see her smiling face there. And if not, and you're listening to the audio only, you will hear her voice. Now, let me tell you about her. Joanna Lott is a business coach specializing in helping coaches attract clients authentically. She hosts the globally ranked podcast, The Women in the Coaching Arena, and she has helped hundreds of coaches build profitable businesses through strategic marketing. She's an ICF associated certified coach, pardon my words, but it's an ICF ACC with an ILM level 7 certificate. And Joanna combines professional credentials with proven experience selling executive and career coaching services. Joanna, welcome to the show. I am so glad that you're here.
Thank you. Same here, Candy. I know we are after the same mission to help more coaches succeed. So, yes, can't wait to talk.
Yeah, I love it. And I love having you on because we serve basically the same type of individual, and that's perfect. Like there are more than enough clients in the world to go around, and somebody is going to hear you. There's going to be something different about what you say that's going to be really attractive to them. And I think the other thing is that we each have our own unique way of describing things. And so the more that I can hear, the more that the listeners can hear, the more that they can learn, and then they can take it away and use it and make it something amazing and build that profitable coaching business that they really want, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think, like you say, it's a great role modeling for people listening that you will attract the clients that are meant for you. And therefore, you don't need to worry about like everybody else and what they're doing because you will just attract what's right for you.
Yeah, I love that. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got to doing what you're doing? And also, what is it about your business and your coaching that is really bringing you joy right now?
Love it. So, what brought me here is my daughter starting school and therefore no longer being able to get to and from London to my job. Therefore, I took a backward step into a admin position that was advertised as school hours only, school term time only. But fortunately for me, it was within a coach training organization. So I managed to then just fall into this amazing world, did my coach training with them, obviously, and helped loads of coaches and really saw, because it was a coach training organization, that huge gap between qualifying as a coach and helping all these people and registering them and being a qualified coach myself eventually. And then what happened next with that huge gap with the marketing knowledge. So I used to run a course for them, which was an email marketing course, but it wasn't enough. There wasn't enough support. So then I just got the bug of like, how can I help people with all of the love, support, knowledge, all of the different ingredients I feel is required to build a business?
I love that. And it just reminds me of this saying that I hear and that I share with my clients as well. Being an excellent coach does not mean that you're going to be a successful coach. You know, having great coaching skills and great listening skills does not mean that you're going to sign clients and that you're going to be able to create the impact that you want to make. And that's a really hard pill for people to swallow. You know, like the
Yeah.
first time they hear that, they're really resistant. And I get it. And yet, if you want to be successful, there's a process. There's a way that you can do it. And I'm just glad that people such as yourself really get out there and help those coaches so that they can coach, right? Like that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a huge gap. And like you say, I think lots of people, including me at the start, try to fill that with more and more qualifications because I had my ILM level 7 in executive coaching and mentoring. I thought that certificate would help me feel ready to market my business. The moment I had that in my hands, I thought, oh no, I better do the ICF ACC because I can't start doing anything until I've got that next level thing. And even then, you start thinking, oh no, but I'm not PCC. So hold up everything. Let's go for the next thing. So yeah. And now, obviously, after years of doing that, I know super clearly that doesn't matter how many qualifications you do, you need to overcome this fear of marketing and being visible. And it's the marketing skills that are going to help your business be successful once you've got those foundational, amazing skills that we all obviously want to continue developing. But we also need to really focus on that marketing stuff as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And to find joy and pleasure in the marketing as well. There's really something there. What can you share with me some of the, I guess, some of the path of how you got to the place where you really realized that marketing was going to be important, it was going to be a must, and to enjoy it at the same time?
Yeah, because I forgot to answer your question about joy. So I really do enjoy the marketing now because the switch I had is how you can see it as part of your mission. So I genuinely don't care if someone is a paying client or not a paying client. I want to make their life better from coming into contact with me. So I think really shifting that around to making people's day, if it's a social post, a blog post, a networking event, whatever it might be, how can you leave them feeling better than they were before? So I think when you have that switch and see your marketing as part of your greater mission, then I just love marketing. The problem is, I love marketing probably so much that half the time I forget to reply to the sales inquiries because I'm so busy doing my marketing. But I think that, yeah, I think eventually, and also it helps you find your voice. That was also the pleasure for me as someone that had never really spoken up, in all honesty, until I was 40 years of age. I was kind of the good girl, quiet, do what you're meant to do, while I was employed, say what you're meant to say. I was, knew what I was meant to say to this person, that person. In the workplace, you kind of perform, I guess. And therefore, it was an amazing opportunity to start putting posts out and thinking, what is my view on this? And so I discovered myself in doing the marketing.
Oh, that's interesting, right? That as you build your business and you build your skills to really deepen your personal development and your understanding of who you are, an unexpected bonus, right?
Totally. And I think even the overcoming all of the shame associated with marketing, in other words, your colleagues or your family will say, oh God, every time I go onto LinkedIn, there you are. And I'm like, yeah, now I'm proud. Like, as you know, I've been at a family event today and, got the same old thing that I used to get. And I used to feel deep shame in that moment of someone saying, I've seen your posts on LinkedIn. Was now I'm super proud. I'm like, yeah, I'm making waves out there. It's amazing rather than, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing that they've seen my posts.
Well, I know coaches that when they start out, they won't even have a social media platform that has their name. So they'll have their personal account, but they don't want anyone to know that they're marketing their business. And so they might call themselves mindset coach. That might be their name on Instagram as opposed to Jane Smith, right? And I get it that that's an approach if you're in, a really high functioning role and corporate doesn't want their clients to know that you're doing two things. I get that. But there is that feeling of I can't be myself, right? I have to show up just as my title, just as my mindset coach title or health coach title, whatever it may be, to do my marketing. And so, what you've described, this place of coming to this place where you love it, you know that you're helping anyone who comes in contact with whatever it is that you post or how you show up, is really powerful. It's sort of the next step of evolution.
Totally. And that's the goal, isn't it? To help our clients get to that place. And don't get me wrong, I'm no saint. Half the time I am thinking, gosh, I haven't got anything scheduled for next week. But when I get in the zone, I think, and if you can just try and see it as part of that greater ecosystem, it can be enjoyable.
Yeah. Now, I know we spoke about social, just touched on it lightly, but what we had thought that would be a really great conversation is to talk about how do you sign clients without social media, or where do we overly rely on social media as our marketing platform? So, where would you like to start the discussion?
I guess the first thing I would think about is when you first perhaps qualify or start your business and that initial sharing of your with your network, which I know we've talked about before, and people can really resist doing that because they say no one I know has anyone I would want to coach, or there's just all of that resistance. So I think it's really important in a really personal way to be able to share with your network and take them on the journey with you. Asking for their support, I think, is a really great way of doing it rather than, hi, I've launched my coaching business. Here's a list of my services, and being too official. Like, how can you help them really want to support you? I think is a great thing to do when you start.
I love that. And there's a kind of like a type of letter or email that you can send, something like, here's what I'm excited about. Here's this new wonderful thing that I'm doing, and engaging them as opposed to essentially sending them a brochure, you know, right? And so this idea of personal connection as a way to build your business. I mean, that's the starting point. But there are people that have massive businesses that don't even have a website, you know, right? So it's possible we just don't see it. What do you think happens with a newer coach who knows they should send a note to their warm circle and then they get scared? How can they overcome that? How can they just start that movement?
Yeah, I think it's just knowing that everything you want is on the other side of sending that message.
Mm.
And if you want a successful business, and if you take people on that journey and ask for their support rather than informing them of what you're doing, that generally your friends and family will want to support you if you go about it in the right way.
Yeah. And so then there's question about what is the right way. And I think that that's where, like, I'm just thinking about my clients, the ones especially who are new coaches, when they resist, they get really hung up on what will they say, what should they say in their email, or what will the recipient say when they read that, oh, now you're a health coach. Oh, but you're not the healthiest person that's ever lived on the face of the earth, right? Like, there's this fear of judgment from our friends and family that maybe is valid, maybe is not. And then they fuss about the perfect words to use. But I think that there's something else at play here. And so what do you think? Like, as I'm sort of talking this through, what do you think is the underlying thing at play in this scenario?
Yeah, it's exactly where you were going to, is that fear of judgment. And therefore, I would challenge anyone listening to know that facing that fear of judgment is going to help you to personally develop. And that's obviously what we love to do as coaches. So, what's underneath that? And really exploring, they think I'm not healthy enough. Like, but what's the truth? Can you help somebody with that? And know that no one's perfect anyway, and accept that. So I guess how can we treat it as a personal development journey?
Yeah, I agree. I really love that. And how to unhook from what we think somebody else might have an opinion that is not favorable, and and then express it in a way that hurts, or there's this other piece is that we hold ourselves back because we think somebody might have an opinion, but we don't actually know if they're going to have an opinion. And so often their opinion sounds something like this: wow, that's amazing. Right? So they do have an opinion and it's supportive, right? So, like,
Yeah.
you almost need to make it like, I find that the more people I connect with, some ignore me, some say go away, some are happy to talk to me. The more people I connect with, the less worried I am about that individual's
Yes.
response, right? Then it's like, okay, I sent 10 notes and 3 people ignored me. 2 people said, hey, that's just great, let's talk. And 5 people said, no way. But it's only just numbers then. It's not just me with that one individual. And that's really helped me. And I try to encourage my clients to do the same as well.
Yeah. That's so true. Yeah, I would do the same. Send as many as possible so you can't even remember how much stuff is out there.
Exactly.
Totally. And actually, about your point, usually there is that one person that they secretly are thinking they're going to judge me. So sometimes we think everybody is going to judge me, but usually if you drill down, there's that one previous boss or that one colleague that they didn't particularly like or they didn't think liked them that they're secretly worried about. So I had a leadership coach client who is now changing like the whole industry of leadership coaching due to the fact that when we first started working together, there was this one person, her previous boss, who she said, I can't post on LinkedIn because I think he's going to think, what's she doing? Who does she think she is? She wasn't a great leader. So who does she call herself a leadership coach?
Yeah.
So I said, being sarcastic, what are you going to do? Email him and ask permission? And she said, great idea.
Yeah.
And so she actually emailed him saying, I don't know why, but I'm starting my business and I've got this horrible feeling that when I start posting, you're going to judge me. So he replied back saying, no, what makes you think that? Post away. She's posted away. She's probably now had 20 million views on social media. I don't even know how many connections and things she's got now. She's literally on fire, 10 times more than me. And all because she actually thought, you know what, I am going to just address it.
That's so fun. See, and
Yeah.
I would have done something different. So this is just great because when when somebody says, "Oh, I'm worried that my ex-boss is going to judge me or whatever," then I love to go down okay, so let's say that they do. What do you think that they're going to say? What, like, and just sort of keep pursuing it and just get it to the point where they can see that it's they haven't even thought it through. They just thought, oh, they're going to judge me, as opposed to, well, then what happens if they don't like it? Are you never going to talk to anybody else? And what happens if they do say something? Like, what might they say? And, like, just really draw out that what they perceive as a painful situation. And then they realize that the likelihood of that is like 0.0001%. And that sort of resolves it. It's like, oh, what was I thinking? Oh, of course I'll just go ahead and do this. Of course I'll just take this step. But I love that, and I would never have thought of that in an instant to email somebody and say I'm doing this and basically ask for permission. What a fun thing!
Yeah. I was
I,
joking. I didn't expect her to do it.
I
I
get
was just
it.
kidding, you know. And
Yeah.
she was just like, genius idea. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I was like, no, no, no. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. But she was like, it worked for her, which is just amazing.
I love it. And the emotion that I feel there is that feeling of bold. And so often, like a coach who is really going to take that next step, when you can tap into that feeling of bold, now you've got something powerful to move forward with. Like, that's your impetus. So, talking to people, emailing people, but how else without social media? Or do you want to talk more about, like, other approaches that you can take? Or do you want to talk about more about what why we fall into this trap that we think we must do social media? Which one feels like a better conversation?
Yeah, I think maybe both. I'll start with
Okay.
why we get sort of sucked into the, constant creation wheel and then therefore forget the really important things that can actually make a difference. And I think it's designed to make us do that. You've got to keep feeding the beast, as they say. And it's just the slowest way to grow. I'm not saying don't do it. And I use LinkedIn and I love doing my posts on LinkedIn. But I think it's about how can we build the next step of that ecosystem of your business rather than thinking that social media is going to generate loads of clients because really it doesn't without taking them on the next step. So I like to think of it as a staircase. They're on the bottom of the staircase, you're on the top of the staircase. Social media, seeing your post is one step up, but they're very unlikely to jump up the next three steps to booking a discovery call with you, for example, without first reading a blog of yours, or next up hearing you on a podcast, or next up seeing you speak at a workshop. There's usually that extra warming up thing that's required for them to really get to know you enough to take that next step.
Yeah, I love that. And I don't know about you, but I have found that podcasting is one of the most interesting ways to sign clients because they, people listen. They listen to what you say. They listen to the tone of your voice. They listen to, what they perceive as who you are and the kinds of conversations that you have. And then they feel like, oh, okay, I kind of feel like I know that person. And that really brings down that barrier to signing clients as well. The other thing, I mean, you and I are swapping podcast interviews. I'm going to be on your show, you're on my show. This
Yeah.
being podcast guest is also a super powerful way. And my feeling about podcast guesting is that where else will I get to have a great conversation with somebody that I would never have sat down and really talked to them for 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour. Like, we might do a 15-minute coffee chat and then we've just sort of scratched the surface, but we haven't really had a conversation. Every time there's a conversation and somebody can hear the conversation, with their earbuds in, that just really moves you up the trust ladder.
Yeah.
What's your experience being with podcast guesting and podcasting? Is that something that you found to be really extraordinary?
Oh, yeah. Completely changed my business. My podcast has. It's just been amazing. Although I do think if you are fairly new, don't think, oh, I'll just launch a podcast because you still have to have an audience to direct to that podcast to begin with, because it's not like the podcast algorithm really works that hard for you. Maybe eventually, but you do need to kind of feed it first to kind of kick it into action. So it's not always the best strategy to create your own podcast. But if you do have some sort of audience already, then I think it's amazing. And you get to build that relationship with people. So for me, it's been a way of people buying now from a sales page a pretty high ticket offer because I only work 4 hours a day because I do school hours. So I haven't got much time. So the discovery calls were really sort of taking up half of my week. So I took the scary move to just see if I could sell from the sales page. And obviously, if someone messages me and wants to meet, clearly I would meet. But by having my podcast, like you say, they feel like they know you because they've heard you and they've heard your thought process so often that now I've managed to consistently sell from my sales page for probably every month for 2 years or something, which I just never thought was possible prior to having my podcast. So, yeah, it's been an absolute game changer for me and my business.
That's amazing. And I just love, like, we've been talking for about half an hour, and anybody who's listening to this episode, there's just a wealth of information and a wealth of ways of approaching this that you've outlined, from letters to people that to podcast guesting to podcast hosting to, so you are on social media, and what do you need to do?
Yeah. So, another great way of bringing people into your world is borrowing other people's audiences. So, for example, I've had a client this week who did a talk at her local gym. She helps mums, with that career pivot. So she did a talk, the gym arranged it, filled it. It was actually a paid talk as well, which is great because often these talks are kind of free as trying to get people into your world, but it was a paid one. So therefore they've got more skin in the game. And she gained clients for her career change program from doing that talk in the gym. And she's only had a business about 2 months. So it was a pretty brave move of hers to approach that gym and do that. So I think, yeah, think about who else has your ideal client and how you can get in front of them in a complimentary way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think complementary is the word there too, right? Like we always want to be building more relationship, creating a win-win, creating a really great partnership and a collaborative approach. There's this underlying thread though that I'm noticing, and it's the thread of brave and the thread of bold and the thread of as you grow your business and the marketing of your business, treating that as personal development as well, right?
Love it.
Is
Yeah,
there a,
totally.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's the most exciting part of having a business is that you have to be bold, brave, overcome so many fears. So in a way, that's why I have my business is to become more courageous like every day and always be doing stuff I'm scared about. And it's kind of exhausting, don't get me wrong. Half the time I think, take me back to when I just could sit at my desk all day and not really have to put yourself under this type of pressure. I don't think, I honestly feel like employment is easy now in comparison to being an entrepreneur and every day knowing that your results are dependent on you and who you are and the actions you're taking. And there's no one else to blame. There isn't the IT team or the comms team, or there's nobody else. It's all dependent on you. So, therefore, what an amazing opportunity that you have to step up and think, how can I be the fullest expression of myself?
Yeah. And so that's a real criteria for being in business, right? That
Yeah.
realizing that you're going to be responsible and response able, like this is up to you and you can figure it out, right? You can ask
Yeah.
other people for help. There's other people who have gone before. Most of the coaches that I know, we have our own coaches, we have our own mentors, and that's how we grow. It's just a different environment than that day-to-day job.
Yeah.
So, as we get ready to wrap up, is there something that we haven't talked about that you're like, oh yeah, I got to remember to talk about that?
I think it's touching on that last point slightly on how else you can get in front of other people's audiences is really key here. So, for example, I had a client who paid something really cheap. She said the price of a coffee. So, in my head, I'm thinking £5 or $5, whatever, to feature in someone's Instagram stories. And she gained 60 discovery calls overnight.
Wow.
Insane.
Yes.
So again, keep thinking, especially in that early part when you have no audience, how can you somehow get in front of other people's audiences? So she was a fashion buyer and then she was the career coach helping fashion buyers change career. So there was some fashion buyer Instagram that wasn't career coaching related at all, but they obviously had a lot of fashion buyers in their audience. And so, as I say, she gained probably 1,000 followers overnight and 60 discovery calls booked, and therefore 15 paying clients or something within, a few weeks. So it's just amazing what you can do if you can just keep thinking, how else can I get in front of someone else's audience that done the hard slog and that hard build while you do your own build?
Yeah, that's a great question. How can I get in front of somebody else's audience? There are so many wonderful ideas that you've shared that people could listen to this episode over and over and just say, okay, ask myself that one question that Joanna shared. How can I get in front of somebody who has an audience of my dream client? And how can I do it collaboratively? I think that that's just gold. Joanna, before we sign off, I would love to hear, how can people find out more about you? How can they get more into your world?
Yes, totally. So I have a podcast called Women in the Coaching Arena, and my website is joannalottcoaching.com. And I have a free 2025 coaches planner, which will take you through step by step the process of building your business as well. So I can give you the link. And if people want that, they can get that for free in the show notes.
Lovely. I'll definitely put it in the episode notes as well. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Candy.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this week. I hope that you have replayed this episode. You've grabbed your journal and got your pen, you've taken notes, and you've started brainstorming some ideas. Joanna has shared so many great things with you, and I know that is really going to support you in building your business. Thanks again for joining us this week, and have a wonderful week. I will talk to you again next week.